Welcome back to another episode of the Unstoppable Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Crane. I got my man Gene Slade in the house. Gene is a master sales trainer, specifically for the trades and all the blue collar business owners out there that are wanting to improve their sales practices, get their team dialed in. They're looking to hire Gene to bring him not just in house, but I know you do a lot of events. I'm sure you have a lot of ways you work with your people, but it's cool to have you here, man. It's cool to hear and learn more about your business and what you're doing. I just see you connected with all kinds of people in the blue collar world, right? Like all the trades, and we have a lot of similar friends, acquaintances, and stuff like that. So, looking forward to this interview, Gene. How you doing today, man?
If I was any better, I'd have to be twins just to handle it, man. I mean, you got me over here getting more muscle and everything and getting back in shape as a part of your program. So I really appreciate what you do. And I'm grateful and humbled to be able to talk to your audience, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I know we connected. I think it was like probably 3 months ago now at this time. You called me just on Facebook Messenger, and I was out with my rucksack on, walking in the hills, like out of breath. But I had seen you. I had seen you enough to know, like, okay, this is a guy I want to talk to, and we could discuss that as well, like how to get attention, how to become someone of influence, of intrigue. I think
Yeah.
that's really important. Like if someone sees your Facebook profile or they see you at an event, would they want to talk to you? Would they want to get to know you? I think a lot of sales, marketing, business in general comes down to that. But at the core of that, it's almost how you're living on a personal level each and every day.
Yeah.
And for me, man, like when I said I was out on a rock and I was out walking in the hills, I do that every day because I honestly love it. I love the way it makes me feel. And I've noticed over the years, it has just helped me to become more confident, bring better energy into those rooms, build more powerful relationships. Because then you get around people and it's almost like they could pick up on the work you've been putting in on yourself,
Yeah.
whether
Well, you,
it's
you end up vibrating at a different frequency
yeah,
when you walk into those rooms looking like you look compared to walking in there, at 275 pounds, right?
yeah,
You're going to be taken differently.
yeah. And it's the physique, it's the energy, it's the self-confidence. You can't fake it. You can put on a mask in a lot of ways in life, but eventually your true colors are gonna emerge. And so yeah, you called me that day. We got you in the fitness and nutrition program, and you were already working out and taking care of yourself. But I think now just pushing you to a whole nother level, it's really cool to see you progress and put the work in on yourself because you have an effect over a lot of people.
Right.
Like, I don't know how many lives you're touching through
A
team
lot.
members, through events, yeah, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. But you're the type of individual that I love to be able to work with the most, knowing the ripple effect that's taking place. Because you're a
Man.
leader, right? I mean, you're a leader, and other people, you're gonna really help them just by the way you live your life and impact them. So that's why I titled this episode "How to Create Influence and Impact," because I think you're someone that exemplifies true influence and impact. So why don't you share a little bit with the audience what you exactly do for business day to day right now? Like, what's your bread and butter?
So today I help HVAC, plumbing, electrical, solar, roofing, the trades, those contractors or technicians to really what we focus on is multiplying their average tickets. Right. And then we focus on increasing closing ratios. And what I found a long time ago is if I help the technician, I could help the business owner. Business owners are kind of difficult, especially once they get to a certain level, right? They're putting out so many fires, they're saying no to so many things that it's difficult to get in front of them. But if I can help their technicians, all of a sudden I've got their attention. So we do sales training events around the country. Sometimes they're movie theaters. Sometimes they're at a mansion like Gatlinburg. We just got back from Gatlinburg. There's a 57 seat theater there. We can put like an extra 10 chairs. So we can put like 67 people in this mansion. It's like 25,000 square feet. And we live with them for 3 or 4 nights and we pour into them. And what we see coming out of those events is just insanity. I mean, people go out and within 7 to 30 days, they're doubling, tripling, quadrupling their sales, and it has an equivalent impact on their income, right? And then they start to be able to dream again, right? I mean, I'm sure that you had some dreams when you were younger, and when you started going into life as an adult, life's tough, right? And a lot of people give up on those dreams that they had for themselves. And it's sad to see that. It's sad to see the place where they're living. I mean, stories like guys who are homeless living in abandoned buildings and in their cars with their wives and their infant child, that now today are, making $400,000 or $500,000 a year with paid off houses and paid off cars and six figures in the bank. I mean, that's generational transformation. It might not be generational wealth, but that guy now knows how to fish instead of having people give him fish. And so he's going to be able to pass that on to his kids and everybody. They say it's not what you leave for your kids, but what you leave in them that counts. Right. So that's the kind of work we do. Sometimes we go on sites, and then we also have online classes and stuff like that, online masterminds, a lot of different programs, if you will. That's the 30,000 foot view of what I'm doing today.
Well, no, that's really cool because I have a lot of questions, and I love, we spoke the other day on the phone, and you kind of alluded to some of the guys you've helped by developing the skill set in sales completely rebuild their life.
Completely.
Going from sleeping on a park bench to, like you said, now owning a home and having money in the bank. And a lot of people, when they're under stress, they can't, like you said, they can't dream big. They can't have those abundant thoughts where anything's possible. It's just survival mode.
Yeah.
And you look at society, and I think a lot of society right now is in survival mode, whether it's just paying the bills. A lot of people are renting. They can't even afford to buy a home. They don't have skill sets, or they don't have a career path that's going to allow them to make a lot of money. Like, they're stuck in a 9-to-5 job where they're making X number of dollars per hour. And so you see people, and they get in that place and they just get in survival mode. And that's why they look forward to the weekends. They love eating big, tasty meals of unhealthy food. They love to drink alcohol and do all this stuff because they get that little moment of reprieve where they can forget about the stress. And God, that's like the rat race, right? So what I love that you just described is teaching people the mindset and the skill set in sales to be able to take back control of their lives,
Yeah. And maybe even not have to work as much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And if you're good at sales, you can work from home. You go into other industries. Once you have that understanding of, like, persuasion, sales, the whole process, it's such a valuable skill set, man. And the trades, more than ever right now, is so lucrative. Like, young people would be better off to learn how to be successful in the trades than go to college in most cases. But let me ask you this, because you said something that was interesting. You go, I don't really work with business owners right out of the gate. I work with the technicians. Now, when you work with the technicians, obviously, if you're training them and helping them to sell at a higher ticket or to have a higher close rate, you get the business owner's attention. They're like, damn, what's this guy doing? I like this guy. But are the technicians paying to work with you, or are the business owners hiring you outright for their team?
It's both. It's both. A lot of times the business owner or a manager will end up getting in touch with us, and they'll send a few people to an event. And a lot of times it's technicians that are reaching out to us and saying, hey, how can you help me? And we're the premium service provider in the sales training field for our industry. We're up there, and it's because we're worth it. And so we're out of reach sometimes, or have been, for some of those technicians that I would really like to work with, which is why we recently launched a new program, Sean, where it's basically no money down. There's a refundable deposit that ends up going towards whatever money we help them earn moving forward. But it's essentially a risk-free program where you got to qualify for it, but I'm going to work with 7 businesses and 7 just technicians, where all I do is I take a percentage of the increase in income or the percentage of the increase in the average ticket. And it's an insane program, and it's going to help people that couldn't work with us before be able to work with us.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. I love that. So how did you get your start in sales? Like, take me back to when you started and what that looked like.
I got to kind of go back a little bit further than that for just 30 seconds. So when I was 11, my dad owned his own heating and air conditioning business, or had just started it, and he needed cheap labor, right? So he said, boy, if you want food, you want clothes, come to work, essentially. And so I did. And within a couple of years, by the time I was 15, I was a capable full installer. And so he decided that he'd hire a 21-year-old to be my helper and drive me around, because I didn't even have a license yet. And we turned a 1-truck business into a 2-truck business. But that was all up until high school. So I ended up going off to college for wrestling. That didn't last long because I got injured. And then I came back and basically got right back into the trades. And I was an installer making $42K a year. This is back in probably, this is probably 25 years ago. And I was pissed because I saw these salespeople coming in that didn't know anything compared to what I knew about the trade. And they're making 2-3 times as much money as me. So I decided, hey, I'm going to send out 50 resumes to Florida, 50 resumes to Michigan. And I ended up taking a job at the most expensive company within 100 miles of me in Michigan. I had no clue that they were going to be that high. But they were a premium service provider. They provided the best service and the best installations. And I quickly learned how to not sell value, but how to sell for more money. I hate the word creating value. I look at it a little bit differently, but I look at it as describing the difference between myself and the other guys, really creating doubt about doing business with people that are going to provide a lower service. And so that was really how I ended up getting into sales. Was I got sick and tired of watching other people make more money than me.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, right? Like you're over there busting your butt, climbing in attics and stuff, like 110 degree, 20 degree weather. And so how did you transition though from being a salesperson in a business to being a sales coach?
Well, there's a step in between there. So I was a salesperson, and then I ended up becoming a sales trainer. And the way that happened was the general manager of the company that I was working at the time had to have a gastric bypass. And because he really wanted to lose weight. And he asked me to take over the training for him I was the best salesperson in the company. So he said, could you take over the training for the next couple of weeks while I go have this surgery? And so I took over the training, and immediately our revenues went up. Our average tickets went up. Our closing ratios went up. And I was kind of proud of that. And so I just called him up like a week into it to find out how he was doing. And I let him know he didn't need to come back to do training anymore, that I would just take over. And I wasn't paid anymore to do it, but I was paid more to do it because of what it gave me between my ears. And I got to practice on somebody else's company before starting my own.
Okay. And how long did you do that for?
I did that for probably 2 years, and I ended up eventually becoming the general manager of the company. I think I was with them 2.5 before I ended up going to take a test for my contractor's exam. And I hadn't gotten any books or anything like that. I was going to take a practice test essentially. So I took a day off of work and went to take a practice test for the business law and the contracting side. And I accidentally passed the test. I've always been a pretty good test taker, but I passed the test. So I qualified to get my license. And the next day that I came back to work, I don't know how they found out, because I didn't tell nobody, I didn't tell a soul. But I ended up coming back to work. I did a training session in the morning. And at the end of the meeting, both the owners came into the room, which was really weird because they hated each other and they never were around each other. So I knew something was up. And they called me into the office and said, "Hey, we found out that you passed your contractor's exam and your services are no longer needed here." And I'll tell you, it was a shock to the system because I was no position to start a company. I had $100 between 4 bank accounts because I was paying off all of my debts and everything. So I was debt free, fortunately. But I just had a baby boy who was 5 weeks old, a wife who had major surgery having him, just signed a brand new lease on like a almost $2,000 a month house back then, which was a lot of money. And I had a 50-mile non-compete. So, I mean, I was really screwed in that market. So on my drive home, I decided I would start my air conditioning company because I didn't want to spend another 2 or 3 years fighting somebody else to grow their business. Because that seems like what it's like a lot of times with some owners is you're fighting to grow their business. You're fighting against them a lot of times. And so I decided,
why is that? You think they just want to have control over everything, or they don't?
Yeah, man.
Don't trust
business owners. Business owners are just very fearful of change. Mm-hmm. And unless they're in a good, mastermind, or they got good mentors that can show them what the next steps are, like with you and I, the fear of going backwards is greater than the fear of staying the same. Right. So, plus, I think that a lot of times they get intimidated by talent that's greater than themselves. It doesn't mean that just because somebody's a great salesperson doesn't mean they're a better business person than you, but give them credit for being who they are and try not to hold them back. I find that that's when a lot of salespeople end up leaving, the really good ones, is when they feel like they're bridled, right? I've heard this before, I'm sure you have. If the owner's dreams are not big enough for all the employees' dreams to fit into, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And, it could be a control thing. Like you said, it could be they don't want to be outshined because sales, you're bringing in the revenue and you're going to get a lot of attention when revenue goes up. And who knows, there's a lot of factors there.
A lot of hate too. Isn't that crazy? A lot of hate when revenue goes up, like from other people within the organization, right? It's weird, the human condition and how negative people are. I think I must have said a dozen times in the mansion event that I just left that being positive is a skill. Something you got to practice like a muscle.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about some of the intangibles or the habits and routines that go into producing a good salesperson. Because I think being positive and optimistic is absolutely key. Like if you go into any aspect of life pessimistic and expecting negative outcomes, you're not likely to persevere and succeed. It's just chips are stacked up against you, right? So how do you said being positive is a skill set. How do you develop that skill set?
Practice over and over. It's about getting pissed off over and over again and then catching yourself, right? And the best way that I've learned to do that, and listeners, if you're out there or if you're watching this, if you got access to a piece of paper, I want you to grab a piece of paper and turn it sideways, like landscape version. Grab yourself a pencil and a piece of paper. If not, I want you to imagine an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper in front of you. And I want you to draw 2 circles on it, one on the left, one on the right, and don't let them touch. All right. Now, on the one on the left, we're going to write what happened. And then on the right, we're going to write my story. Okay. So there's what happened and my story about what happened. So everything that happens to you, and most people are not going to agree with this, but I'm telling you, it's the facts. Everything in life that happens to you is empty and meaningless. Doesn't mean anything. You got a divorce. Doesn't mean anything. You've given up 17 times on getting in shape. Doesn't mean anything. Somebody cheated on you. It doesn't mean anything until your brain says that it means something. You're the one that determines what everything happens to you means. So something happens, and you create a story about it, and then you play that story over and over and over and over and over again in your head until it is not just a thought, but a belief, right? So the trick is when something happens and your brain automatically makes it mean something, that's not your fault, right? But if you choose to continue to believe it or not check it for validity, it will become your fault and you'll become powerless to change your circumstance, right? So Werner Erhard, the guy who created this technology, everybody thinks that he just lives this great and perfect life. And in the program, when we have an upset, we call that getting on it. All right. So that's what I mean by getting on it is we have an upset or we're upset about something. Werner says, you guys think that I don't get on it anymore or get upset anymore. He said, the difference between you and I is that I've trained my brain to change the story faster than everybody else, right? So something happens, you make a bad move. Sometimes we say to ourselves, man, that was stupid, or you're stupid, right? Guess what? You're creating that. It's a creation. The fact that you failed at something means absolutely nothing. It's completely meaningless until you or somebody else decides what it means. And by the way, other people's opinions of you are none of your fucking business, right? So if somebody says something to you about something that happened and makes it mean something, nah, dog, you don't get to rent that space in my head. You don't get that kind of power or control. I choose what it means, and this is what I say it means. So that's a long version it's a short version of a very long story, but it took a while.
No, that's good. I mean, your self-talk is so important, and I think a lot of people do what you were describing unconsciously because they've done it for so long. When something bad
Yep.
happens or it's perceived as bad, a setback, a failure, something doesn't go their way, they automatically get negative about it and pessimistic, and that becomes a program that they run their entire lives off of. And one of the healthiest things people can do when something happens is pause and reflect on it and pay attention to their emotional reaction and ask themselves, why am I feeling this way? You know, why does this matter? And then not just that, but start to look at the situation and go, well, how can I actually leverage this experience?
Yeah.
How can I learn from it? How can I grow from it? Honestly, this is the craziest thing. If something goes your way and you get the result, cool, you're winning. If
Yeah.
something doesn't go your way and it doesn't, the result doesn't come the way you want it to, that's even more of an valuable experience sometimes because you can learn through that experience and become better, right?
And
So
you
you're
don't learn
winning
anything from your
you're
successes,
always
right?
winning. And this is something I
Yeah.
always say, Gene, is like, I never lose, right? I win or I learn through life circumstances.
I love that.
That shift right there that you just alluded to in my thinking not only changed my life, but saved my life. I had to shift my thinking in really negative circumstances to try to find the positive potential. Like, how most people project into the future and they think about all these negative outcomes. I had to project into the future and almost be delusional to think that positive outcomes would transpire from such a negative life experience. But what it did was it helped me to have a little bit of hope, and it helped me to show up each and every day and still focus on what I could control and do. And then over time, I slowly moved towards those outcomes. So positive thinking, when I think of it, it's being able to shift your self-talk and inner dialogue, like you
Yep.
just alluded to. But then the second thing, and this is where I think a lot of people go wrong or just miss, is they're not doing enough stuff in their personal life that make them truly proud of who they are and how they feel.
Yeah.
So it's inauthentic and disingenuous to try to act positive. Like if you're trying to act positive all the time, but you don't feel it inside, like it's not gonna hit the same. You got to be able to create that energy first and foremost in how you live so that it's just so authentic and so pure and so real. Like we talked about earlier, you walk into that room and people feel your energy and they're like, damn, dude, like that guy Gene's
Yeah.
got good energy. He's cracking jokes. He's making people smile. That comes from somewhere. It's a learned
Right.
skill set. It's repetition in your thinking, but chances are you're doing stuff in your life that make you genuinely proud of who you are. You're making money. You're treating people nice. You're taking care of your health. You're losing body fat. You're working out, whatever. And so this is the other thing I learned. Number one, you got to challenge your self-talk daily, and you always look for the positive potential. But secondly, how many things are you doing on a daily basis to improve who you are and make you feel proud of yourself? And if you talk about that guy on the park bench or that guy battling addiction, that's the first place you start to build that man up so he can even fathom,
Yeah.
seeing himself as a high earner. And almost you got to be able to paint a picture of that guy in a different light and get him to believe in that person before they'll ever really start to commit.
Yeah.
So like I want to talk to you about that. How did you start working with guys who were, I guess, at rock bottom? Like how are you finding guys who are homeless, broke, going through addiction, and getting them to be higher earners and really elite individuals? What does that process look like for you?
They find me, man.
When did it start though? Like I'm curious, like because when you hear about most sales trainers, you think about social media, you think about people that are already doing well but want to hit that next level. How did that first start to transpire? Can you remember the first couple guys you mentored that were really down and out?
You know, I remember the first guy that really comes to mind was an installer of mine. And I wouldn't say that he was down and out, but I would say that he wasn't living great. He didn't have great living circumstances. He was making about 40K a year. And he ended up starting to come into our training sessions. We had training sessions every single morning at my air conditioning company. And he was an installer. He began to just start selling stuff at his jobs. And it got to a point where I needed him to see 3 clients a day, not just one, right? Because he got so good at sales. Within a year, he was making $200,000 a year. So he 5x'd his income. And that was the first time that I really knew that there was an ability to take somebody who knew nothing basically. And within sometimes 30 days, have them making 6 figures a year. And I've gotten
and that's
really,
life-changing.
really good at that. And I've got a very, very specific process for it, kind of like you have for your business. So
Yeah,
the,
and that's life-changing because, if you struggle financially, it's hard for people, like we talked about earlier, to dream big and to believe in those
yeah,
outcomes. And they're just in survival mode, man. And one of the most important reasons to make a lot of money is so you don't have to worry about money. And then you have options and then you can make moves, right? And
right.
I think right now, we're in this place in America where like the old traditional way didn't work and the cost of living is so high, housing prices are so high. People feel they're despairing right now when it
Yeah,
comes to their financial ability, their financial like well-being, and then
right.
from there, there's just no hope in the future. So, for you, that must be really cool to see a guy 5x, 4x his income,
It's
learning the skill
insane.
set that you could teach him because it changes his whole life.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the real joy in my business comes from. It definitely doesn't come from the money that I make. It comes from watching other people do things that they never thought that they could do. And going back, Sean, to you'd asked about how I personally have been learning to be positive over the however many decades I've been on this planet. There's one other thing, and that was the people that you surround yourself with, right? Like I
Yeah.
can't tell you how huge that has been for me. And it's been unfortunate that I've had to cut a lot of people out of my life that just really truly didn't serve me, couldn't think similarly. But it's made room for other people like you to come into my life, right? So that's huge, 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 guys. If you've got people in your life that are dragging you down and you can't get them to come with you on the journey that you want to come on, then you're gonna have to leave them behind. And then the last thing, I don't know if you've seen this video, Sean, but there's a guy on the internet, I forget his name right now. He shot a video and he was talking about when shit happens to him. I think he was talking about how he lost $1 million in one day, one time. And his response was good. Good. I lost $1 million. Good. This guy quit. Whatever comes at you that's negative, he would just say good. And people would be like, what do you mean good? He was like, good that happened. It's going to give us an opportunity to grow over in this area, or good that happened. Now we can figure out what to do to never, ever have that happen again. Right. So again, it is a mindset shift, but again, it's also so important to be around the right people. And too many people, I think today are listening to the radio. They're driving around 3-4 hours in their truck and they're listening to shit that doesn't feed them. Like, how about you listen to somebody who is where you're at or has been where you want to go, instead of all the bullshit that people are piling into their brains. I don't get it, man.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, a couple things to unpack there is like, yeah, the people you surround yourself with are super impactful for how you feel and just how you think. I'd rather be alone than around negative people.
Oh yeah.
Like I would be alone, and I like to segment the time I spend with people in thirds, so 30% of people I like to be around who I can provide value for and mentor and coach and teach. The next echelon, that middle layer, is people who I can sharpen and vice versa. They can sharpen me. I'm also on the same level as you in business and life, right? And that's like your gym partner. That's like maybe people in your organization that keep you on your toes, whatever it may be. Maybe it's your wife or significant other. Who knows? But then that top third are mentors and people that you can look to for advice and get inspired by. And I think if anyone's listening to this, one of the most impactful things you could ever do is get a mentor. Cut out negative people and people that are not going anywhere, like Gene said, because that's going to free up time, space, energy for you to be able to focus on being around people you can learn and grow from. And you can learn and grow so fast by getting around people who have done what you want to do. Or like Gene, imagine a guy who is just starting on sales and he's an HVAC tech or he's in the trades and he wants to just 2x his income. Imagine if that guy got to spend like a couple hours each week picking your brain and talking to you. The amount of information, the perspective shift, and then the skills you can help him to develop to actually go out and make that a reality. Like that's life-changing, And so for me, when I started in my career in coaching, speaking, and building my company, I always wanted to be around individuals that I saw who were further ahead than me. Right. I'm like, dude, I could just watch this guy and pick up on what he's doing.
Exactly.
Then you get to talk to them and pick their brain. and you minimize so many mistakes by doing that, and you can expedite
Yeah.
your results. You know,
Compressed
because like
time, right?
it's like that game Candyland where you hit the ladder and you go like way far in the game. It's
Yeah.
kind of like that, you know. But mentorship is so powerful, and for whatever reason, some people don't want to spend money. They don't want to invest in themselves. They don't believe in mentorship. And I'm like, man, if you really want to do something valuable in life, learn from the people who have done it. It's so fast and instantaneous. But then like it also comes down to personal accountability. You said if you're driving around just listening to the radio and wasting time, like you got to be mindful of how you're utilizing your time. I think everyone should have moments where they can check out, maybe get a little
Yeah,
entertainment, a little pleasure. But gosh, like
absolutely.
90% of your life and your days, in my opinion, should be focused on getting better. You know, like
Yeah.
one of my favorite things to do, I have a treadmill in the garage and I can wake up at 5 in the morning, do a little morning routine and go walk for an hour. So now I'm getting cardio and I'm listening to podcasts. The other
Yep.
day, I listened to like 3 podcasts, one on investing and finance and 2 on the housing market right now and some real estate because I'm educating myself in that area and I want the information. I want to
Yep.
start doing my due diligence. So I'm getting cardio in, I'm getting all these nuggets of information, jump in the cold plunge after, start my day. I'm like, dude, I'm freaking winning. It's hard to go in life not being positive when you're being that proactive, you
Yeah.
know? And so it's all
It's hard to be
intertwined, man.
negative after a cold plunge too.
Oh, it's one of the most impactful things to your energy and well-being. Like anybody out there, if you're having a bad day and you're feeling ungrateful, grumpy, irritable, go get in a cold plunge for 3 minutes and
Yep.
force yourself to stay in up to your neck and get out and watch how quickly it shifts your energy. It's incredible. And I saw you doing that with your guys at your recent mastermind. I think out on the deck, you had a cold plunge for them.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we
Yeah.
I didn't have one there, but I was like, it's not too hot here. I'm gonna go over to Tractor Supply and get a big, I think they call it a stock something. Stock. It's just like one of the feeding trough. And yeah, we poured some water in there, and I had about 110 pounds of ice every day delivered to the house.
Yeah,
And
you're a beast. I got one in my garage here at home, cold plunge and a sauna, a home sauna. I love the contrast therapy. And honestly, man, for me, like a lot of my creative ideas come in those moments where I'm in some type of extreme. It
sure,
might be out or doing a hard workout too. I used to run a lot before I hurt my knee, and I would always get this flood of ideas and this inspiration in those moments, man. And then I could go back home and channel it into content or coaching calls or podcast interviews,
right.
whatever it is. So I kind of want to ask you, how important do you think personal development is for people in business and sales in general?
I don't think there's anything more important. I'll never forget. It's probably it's got to be 20 years ago now. I was already a good salesperson. I was a multi-million-dollar salesperson, which was a big thing back then. And I got into this slump, and I had no idea what was going on. So I called my mentor at the time, and I said, "Hey, man, I don't know what's going on. I couldn't close a barn door right now. There's just nothing's happening." And he said, "What have you been listening to?" And I went, "Oh my God, I gotta go. I'll talk to you later." And I hung up the phone and immediately went to Books a Million and got myself like 5 more CD sets to start listening to shit instead of listening to the radio. Like if and I've gone spurts in my life where I didn't do any of it, right? And every time I don't, I get stuck right where I was. It's just like I can't go any further. So it's something that I think should be a part of everyday life and shit. I mean, I think until a couple weeks ago, I had only missed maybe 2 days of reading in 6 months. And man, it made a huge difference. It gave me more shit to talk about with people, right? Like I had new
Yeah.
content, new material because I'm learning shit. And the further that I go, the further the people behind me can go, right?
Yeah.
As a leader,
That's such a good point. You know, your growth in education never ends. I like how you said that. I'm the same way. I read a new book and there's like a chapter in there I really love. I'm going to do a
Yeah.
podcast episode
Yeah.
on the principles in there and like take life stories and real applications and intertwine it for the listener, right? Put it in a YouTube short or Instagram reel, write a post about it, share it on a coaching
Yep.
call. For me too, that's how I can get information that's valuable and share it to help other people. But also you create like a program in your brain because like you teach this information so
Right.
much and you reiterate it so often. Now it becomes a part of your mind, your subconscious, you know. I really like how you said that. I think good leaders are lifelong learners. Would you agree?
Yeah. Leaders are readers, they say.
Yeah, but just in general, like
Yeah.
people that are really making an impact, you see that they're working just as hard on themselves as they are to teach and pass on the information to others. Like there's something inside real good leaders they're insatiable for information, for growth, for experience. And I get that from you, man. I feel like I don't know how old you are, but you seem like young and fresh in spirit. Does that make sense?
I'm 10 years older than you, man.
Yeah, but you seem like just as excited as ever to be doing what
Oh,
you're doing.
yeah,
And I think
man.
that's the key right there. That's one of the keys to sales and leadership, right? Is bringing that youthful, fun, and exciting energy in everything you do.
Man, that people are attracted to it, right? And it's how I get access to their brains to help them. So I agree with you 100%, man.
Cool. Hey, that brought something up in my mind. I want to do like some rapid fire questions. So if someone's listening to this and they want to kill it in sales, this could be across the board because yeah, I mean, you teach a lot of blue collar guys how to do sales, but you could use this information, apply it to sales in general. So I'm going to ask
Oh,
you
yeah.
pros and cons. So anyone that's listening to this, get out your notepad, get a pen out. Gene's going to give you some nuggets here, right? The first thing I want to ask you is like, what not to do on a sales call if you're a salesperson.
Talk too much. Don't talk too much. You don't make sales by talking. You make sales by listening. If you listen to a client, they'll tell you exactly how to close them. Have a list of pre-planned questions. Have a completely pre-planned presentation. And if you don't have one or don't want to create one, come get mine or somebody else's.
Yeah, and that's great. And where can people find you too, by the way, if they want to inquire about that?
If you can't find me online, something is wrong. At Gene Slade, GeneSlade. You Google my name. You'll find us in all kinds of national publications all over the place. I mean, even in some print locations. We just had a big spread in New York Weekly. So
Okay, I
you should
love
be able
that.
to find us.
Google Gene Slade. You're gonna find him, right? He's a ninja. What's the name of the sales training you do too? It's Ninja something, right?
So the name of my company is Lead Ninja, LeadNinja. The website is leadninjasystem.com.
Okay.
Singular, not plural, system.com.
Okay. I love that. Hey, how important on a sales call is it to collect money, to have them actually commit and make some type of investment versus thinking about it or circling back with them?
It's the only reason that we exist. I mean, the purpose of your job, if you're listening out there and you're not an owner, the literal purpose of your job is generate revenue and profit for the company. The boss didn't just wake up one day, if you're in the trades, and say, I think I'd like more liability. I think I'd like to hire another human being that might take one of my trucks and crash it into somebody else and cause me all kinds of problems. No, they invest in that truck, the training, the uniforms, the parts, the tools, all that stuff to generate revenue and profit. It's not making a profit in business is not an option. It's a requirement.
Love that. What's the number one objection you think salespeople come across, and how do you handle it as well?
Well, that's a two-part answer. The real objection is the price objection, but the most common objection is I want to think about it. But when a man or woman say they want to think about it, they already thought about it and stopped thinking. All right. When you quote somebody a heating and air conditioning system, they know whether or not they want to use you, but they're going to say, I want to think about it because they're wired for cooperation. They don't want to be uncooperative. They don't want to tell you that the price is too high. You've got to get it out of them. So learning that the I want to think about it objection is really a price objection could help a lot of people. Think about it. If it were free, would they need to think about it?
Yeah, that's so good. And is that the way you address the objection? Obviously, by getting clear on what they're really not sure about and trying to handle it from that point.
Well, it depends on the circumstance, but I need to eliminate some things. For instance, in the plumbing, HVAC, electrical world, somebody says they want to think about it. I just mirror it back to them. I just say, "You want to think about it?" I just turn the statement in the form of a question. I listen because they'll usually tell me more, right? They might say, "Yeah, we've made snap decisions in the past and we've lived to regret them, so we just want to sleep on this one." And I'll go, "That's not a problem." Before I take off, I'm going to find out, do they even believe that the work needs to be done? Do you believe 100% in your heart that this work needs to be done at this time? If they say no, there's no reason in me trying to close. They're not convinced that the project needs to move forward. I haven't established a need for them, right? And then when they tell me yes or no, I'm going to ask them why they feel that way, because they're going to start selling themselves a little bit for me. They're going to give me a little bit more information, some of their dominant buying motives. Afterwards, I'm going to ask them if they trust me to do the job right for them, whether they think it's possible that it could be a mistake to use us, right? They're wired for cooperation again, so they're going to be agreeable. And then I'm going to come in and support them a little bit more on that by sharing a couple more features and benefits of my company. And then I'm going to ask them, how do you feel about the money? And that's when it'll come out, right? So I need to know, do they trust me? Do they feel like the work needs to be done? Because if one of those is not true, we don't need to be having a discussion about closing or even about money.
Yeah. If the work doesn't need to be done, they're not going to have as much urgency. And I think what you pointed out there is really important. Like, people, when they're going through a sales process, the prospect, at times they can have their guard up and they feel that pressure and they know what's happening. So if you can become relatable to them and help them to feel comfortable with you, man, that's such a win, you know? And when people say stuff like that to me, I'll hit them with, what do you mean? Kind of like what you said, like, you know, and then you just shut up and listen, and you got to get them to open up a little bit. And that right there fosters a little bit of a connection and trust. Because you're listening to them and paying attention.
Yeah, you're not trying to push them, right? I call it pull.
Yeah.
Selling,
well, they're expecting some like salesy tactic or for you to try to overcome them and persuade them, right?
Some of my favorite words in sales are, "Can you say more about that? Can you say more about that?" Right? People love being heard and listened to. When was the last time somebody actually really asked about your opinions and really just listened to you instead of trying to convince you of theirs?
So good. That's such a good point, right? They're human beings.
Yeah,
and I think for a lot of salespeople have trouble being in those moments that can feel awkward. But you need that little bit of awkwardness there to handle the objection and get the truth out of your prospect, right? And I noticed that because I've trained salespeople for my organization, and teaching them that it's okay to be quiet. It's okay to go through those little awkward moments of silence.
That's awesome.
That's actually, that's going to help you get to the core issue of what their objection is and be able to handle it properly.
Every word that comes out of your mouth is nothing more than an opportunity to mess it up. So be careful what you say. Listen more.
What would be what would you think the top 2 or 3 things that you would want to start training a salesperson on are to absolutely crush it and be one of those guys that 5X's his income in a year?
So that's super easy. It's 2 things. Number 1 is teaching them how to sell payment plans. We don't even use the word financing, right? So if they won't accept my advice on that, they're doomed, right? Because my closing are how do you say it? We have 2 different closes for payment plans, and they are deadly. Everybody that actually implements them, everybody I've seen implement them, has increased their closing ratio by 20 full points, right? So a lot of people, they want to do business with you, but they can't see how they can afford it because like 60% of America's got like less than $600 in their savings account. So they might want it, but they can't see how they can afford it. So they just eliminate themselves from the running, and it's embarrassing for them, right? So that's number 1. But the most important thing is learning how to give people information, but in the form of a question. And this is probably the most impactful thing that I have ever done in business, is teach people how to give information, but in the form of a question. And the way that you do it, here's the simple hack. You just add a couple of different words to the beginning of whatever you're going to say. Words like, did you know? And then go ahead and give them the information. Were you aware? And then go ahead and give them the information. When you do this, we bypass what I like to call the truth-false filter. So Sean, when somebody tells you something or gives you a piece of information or trying to educate you, they have to go through this bullshit meter, right? You've got this bullshit meter, when you're being talked at. But when I say, did you know? And then I give you a piece of information, I zoom right around that truth false meter. Like, and you accept it as enlightenment as opposed to education. And we love discovering new things as human beings, and we don't really love being educated. If we did, we would stay in school, right?
Yeah.
But teaching people how to, instead of telling people something, turning it into a question keeps them from spacing out on me. I get to control what they're thinking the entire way through. So to go even deeper into it, I would have to, I'd have to spend 20, 30 minutes teaching this, but definitely the most impactful thing, because when I ask these questions, instead of just giving them information, the clients end up coming to their own conclusion that something needs to be done about this situation. And if I can get the client to come to their own conclusion that they have a problem without me telling them that they have a problem, then just try to stop them from buying. It's almost impossible.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. The did you know, right? Like phrase it that way instead of just continuing to spew out information. Well, in the last bit you just said they're so important. And that's kind of a little bit, a little piece from Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He's like, if you can get the individual to come to the conclusion on their own, right? It's so much more powerful because they take ownership of the decision versus feel like it's forced upon them, and a way you do that too is you ask questions and shut up. Something about speaking out loud. When people hear their own voice out loud and they're giving answers and they're talking, like for me, this is a big one because a lot of the discovery calls I do or my team members do, we're talking about personal stuff with people.
Yeah.
Stuff that they don't even tell their significant other about. And so when they hear their own voice out loud, and maybe it's accompanied with a little emotion that's been suppressed, something so powerful about that process that changes the way they look at the situation. It makes it more real and tangible than this suppressed idea, thought change they want to make. Now it's like, wow, this is a big deal. Like, I got to change this versus it just being suppressed. So the act of them speaking out loud, I think, is crucial. And you can only do that if you shut up, ask the right questions, and listen.
Yeah, if you listen, they will tell you exactly how to close them.
Yeah, that's a good point. I love that. Okay, let's do one more because this is really good. What's just one, maybe we can call it like a nugget, or I don't know if you have any unconventional teaching strategies when it comes to sales. What's something maybe you don't see talked about or taught in the industry often that you teach that maybe could set you apart, or a little hack that you can provide for people?
I just thought of something and then it left me because I was thinking of something else. I've become famous for the indoor air quality and water treatment sides of the air conditioning and plumbing business. There's just nobody that does that like we do. But ask the question one more time, because the first thing I want to try to get it to pop back up in my brain.
Yeah. I was saying what's
something that we do differently,
something unconventional, maybe that you might teach.
So, and it's going to go back into the indoor air quality water treatment side of it. Because we do this with a lot of our scripting or our pre-planned presentations. So important to have a pre-planned presentation when you're going into a call, because if you have one, you don't have to think about what you're going to say next, and it gives you the ability to listen. But one of the things that we do differently than anybody else, and I don't typically talk about this, we only do this really at our mansion events or our on-sites. It's the only place we teach it. We actually create pictures for different negative side effects of breathing in allergens. So for instance, I've got I think 25 different pictures, word pictures that we'll put up around the room. And those words sound like the negative side effect of breathing in these allergens. So for instance, we'll put up a sign that says deep hole, and I'll ask them to imagine this deep, dark hole that goes all the way back into infinity. And I'll see deep hole, depression, deep hole, depression. And then I'll have a box of tissues, and there'll be a fan underneath it. And it'll be shooting tissues up into the air. Like we're creating this in their mind, right? Tissues, sneezing, right? On the wall, I've got a big nose that hangs off the wall, loss of smell, right? So we do this for 30 different negative side effects, and I can show somebody how to memorize 30 negative side effects in 20 minutes or less. 20 minutes or less. So
Wow.
now they're on the job site and they've got to recall all of the negative side effects of breathing this stuff in. All they do is transport themselves back to the training room and where all of the words were. And it's a phenomenal technique that helps people to just crush it when it comes to indoor air quality or water treatment, or even any of our other pre-planned presentations. Like, we've got the way that we present the money. We create these different pictures for them in their van that helps them through the entire presentation. So each sentence or each paragraph starts with a different picture, and it helps them to not lose their place. It helps them to be calm and comfortable in front of the client. And it's not something that I see anybody else doing anywhere. It was a technique. It was a technique invented by a guy named, I don't know if it's invented, but it was taught to us by a guy named Ron White. And it's not the tater salad guy. It's a different guy. He's a memory expert. And he was at an HVAC convention. He met a bunch of people in a cocktail party. When he went on stage, there's 2,000 people out in the audience. He said, I met 138 of you when I was in the cocktail party. All of you stand up. He got the microphone and went down and gave them each and every one of their names.
That's
crazy.
Man.
Yeah.
That's
so we learned those techniques from him, and it's something that it's like a superpower, man. Absolute superpower.
Yeah. Speaking of that, how are you with remembering names? Because I'm sure you see and talk to a lot of people. Do you have any hacks like that you apply to name recall?
No, I don't. I
might need to learn one of those. I try to do my best. If you make an association too, like I don't know, John, you'd have to make an association with the person's name and maybe where you saw them, where you met them, or something that stands out.
I meet so many people, man, that to me it almost seems futile. And I don't know. I'm also not afraid to ask somebody their name 3 or 4 times. And I have to, like at these events that I was at, if they're not wearing a damn name tag, my brain's going in so many different directions. I'm just going to ask you your name again. And I'm going to ask you to not get upset if I don't remember it for a while. I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. If you're just honest, like, hey man, I've been talking to 1 million people today. Remind me your name again. But if you can glance at their name tag and use their name back in a sentence to them, that really stands 100%. Out to people. I think that's another little gem from How to Win Friends and Influence People. He says, Dale Carnegie goes, people's favorite word in the world is hearing their own name spoken,
followed by the sound of their own voice, which you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, because it makes them feel important. It makes them feel valued and appreciated. And a lot of training people, whether it's employees, team members, I'm sure like other people's employees, is making the individual feel important, making them feel appreciated, making them feel capable. Like, you got to breathe life and potential into people by the way you communicate to them. Because a lot of people just lack confidence, man. And if you have confidence in life, you will go after any and everything. You won't let opportunities pass you by. And that's one of the coolest things about sales and what you're teaching, because that is one of the ways to really bolster someone's confidence. Like, if you can teach them a skill set that can make them 5x the amount of money they were making previously, it changes the way they feel about themselves. That self-worth meter internally goes up, and then if you can get them working out, eating right, reading books, you change that whole person's world, man.
They say that you must increase competence to increase confidence. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%. Well, this has been like very insightful. I just kind of getting a glimpse of your teaching style and a little bit of what you do. It's awesome, man. I love the bit too about, like, for you, I know that it's deeper than money and social media posts. Like, you truly care about people.
It's love,
and
dude.
It is. And it gets me thinking, like, gosh, who do I know right now that could benefit from getting to learn from you? Whether it's a current client I have or just somebody I know in my community. Like, one of the things I'm really a strong advocate for are the trades. Rewind 2.5 years ago, all of a sudden all these business owners and individuals in the trade started reaching out for coaching. And that's when Unstoppable 365 became predominantly for the trades. Now, like 90% of our clientele are blue collar business owners or
that's
techs,
awesome,
But so I'm passionate about teaching young people how advantageous it would be to go into a trade versus go to college and then learn, like, from a guy like you. And that's all young people want is opportunity. You know, they want opportunity to prove that they're capable, to develop that competence, to create a life that they're in love with, not one that they have to escape from. So who knows? Maybe down the road, man, figure out a way to get more and more people pushed to some of your courses, your seminars, and what you're doing, because I love it. I absolutely
That'd
love
be
it.
phenomenal, man. Absolutely phenomenal. We love that 100%. When
Yeah.
when we can make a difference in somebody else's life, man, that's better than any amount of money that we could be paid. And you know, I made this huge sale years ago in 2007. It was like the largest residential HVAC sale in the country. It was for like $123,651.28. I can't believe I don't think I'll ever forget the number. But the first time that I helped another guy sell like a $4,000 product and he made like $700 and he'd never made that much in a week, that was better than any sale I've ever made in my entire life. The joy that you get from showing somebody else how to do something and knowing that it will forever change their life and that that was never going to happen unless you intervened, there's just no better feeling in the world. And so I thank you
Yeah.
for what you're doing for the trades, for all of us, to help us keep our bodies in, you know, good physical condition, keep our energy up, look better, feel better. What does Dion say? When you look good, you feel good. When you feel good, you play good. When you play good, they pay good.
Yeah, it's true, man. Like when you feel better, you perform better. And that's both professionally and then at home with your family. And like the goal is that you create more positive thoughts, more energy, more mental bandwidth. You sleep better. You just feel like a machine because then you go into every day with gratitude and you're excited about
Yeah.
what you're doing. A lot of people get burnt out and it's just because they're not taking care of themselves. So I love the fact that, you know, now we have Dr. J as a part of Unstoppable 365. He could do blood
That's
work,
super cool.
supplementation. I have a team of amazing coaches and people that help hold guys like you accountable and give you the roadmap and blueprint to follow. So we're just getting started, man. You know, our goal is to continue to grow and reach more and more people because men and women alike, they need their health. They want to be optimized. They want to be dialed in, and we can help them. So
Make
yeah,
sure we
down the
get
road,
you
man.
on. Make sure we get you on my podcast so we can get you out to my audience, man. There's so many of them that need help, and they're already asking questions. When people start to see you transform, they're like, "Dog, what you doing?" Right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to bringing some more people over into your tribe, bro.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the support, man. I love seeing you continue to grow and make the impact you are. So let's do it, man. We'll set it up, and until then, thank you for your time. I appreciate all the value you provided, and we'll chat soon.
My pleasure, man. Have a great day.
You too.